Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Joe Theodore, and it's an honor to have you here with me today. Let's talk about Jupiter in Gemini once again. I will be making probably just a few more videos discussing this transit. It is not occurring until the end of May. And to be honest, most of May is such a light month. Like there's not much heaviness to discuss as far as current events. Everything we've sort of, everything we've been through was so much that I could have talked till I was blue in the face on all of the heaviness that we've been through with the eclipse season and all the stuff I've been babbling on about for weeks now. So aside from the new moon we just had, which was gorgeous, and just the other things we've been dealing with for some time now, like Saturn and Neptune, they're doing their thing. Of course, I could ramble on and talk more about those, which I probably will this month. But Jupiter in Gemini is really the next big thing. It is the defining moment and shift going into June. And then we, of course, have Gemini season when the sun enters Gemini. And then, of course, Venus will be in Gemini at some point, all during that month of June, which is going to be setting us up for, I believe, of course, a major shift in your Gemini part of your birth chart. Now, Jupiter expands everything. Jupiter can bring luck. Jupiter can bring teachings and wisdom to us. In the most negative ways, it expands things no matter what they are, positive or negative, or challenging, I should say. Like, for example, with this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, it is expanding protests, conflict in the world, but it's also expanding sudden good things to happen maybe in your life, or sudden insights and revelations that, give you hope and promise maybe in some part of your life. So with Jupiter going into Gemini, an air sign, a sign of chaos, a sign of duality, a sign of split personalities, a sign of socialization, we're dealing with so many factors, so many significations. And then you have to narrow that down to where in your life Gemini activates, because that's really where the story plays out. So Jupiter and Gemini, in my opinion, I try to find the good in all transits, and I feel like some planets don't like others. Some planets don't necessarily feel comfortable, for example, in an air sign, because it could get too wild and crazy, in which Jupiter may provide you. Jupiter may churn up the waters of that area of your life and expand some chaos, expand mental stimulation, expand anxieties. There could be a lot of elements involving Jupiter that can stretch things to the limits. When you're dealing with a sign like Gemini, that could be unfavorable, because we don't want to necessarily expand mental stimulation too much. Otherwise we'll pop, or we're going to learn a massive lesson, which is maybe something Jupiter needs to teach you. Because Jupiter will always teach you something, and something deep. And if you really track back your stories within each zodiac sign that Jupiter has been occupying for the last 11 or so years, because the last time Jupiter was in Gemini was June 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And then it lasted till, I want to say, midsummer, late summer 2013. So Jupiter in every zodiac sign leading all the way back to that time. You can pretty much, if you did your homework, you can go back in time and kind of see, how did Jupiter expand or teach me or bring me some luck and good fortune potentially, any sort of new inclinations to seeking truth or wisdom. Because in every area of your life, I'm sure Jupiter brought you some insights, some things that got you to change something in your life or to inspire you? So this is why this year it's so important, because when Jupiter changes signs, we feel them. Those are moments we feel, especially when they enter at 0 degrees. That first day, that first week, that first month is extremely noticeable. It's just the way it is with any planet's ingress, in my opinion. We really feel it. We really felt when Venus went into Taurus. We really felt, of course, this new moon activation, because this is such a lovely, it was such a lovely setup. We had Jupiter on one side, Venus enclosed by benefics. That's an amazing thing to look as an astrologer. You see, Venus on one side of the zodiac sign. You have, Jupiter on the other. Yeah, Uranus is there, but then we have that new moon happening right in the middle. That's called a benefic enclosure. So that's what made this new moon so gorgeous and such a beautiful launching pad for growth and for prosperity. If we use our intuitions and inclinations properly into what we want to grow or what we want to change and see something flourish in that area of your life. So when all of those ingresses happened in the last couple of weeks, we already have seen, I think, some major healing and changes coming from the eclipse season and all that jazz. So when Jupiter gets into Gemini, we're going to feel it. And whatever area of your life that's occupying, you're going to feel it, And it really just depends on your evolutionary process in all of your house topics that really will determine on what the planet's activation will do to you. So let's say you've been a little, rebellious in one area, one house topic of your life. Like, let's say you've been really careless and not doing the right thing. And let's say the 5th house. The 5th house can be about pleasures and affairs and, of course, children, but romance, just flings and just having fun. But sometimes people have too much fun and it could wreck parts of their life. So if Jupiter's entering your 5th house, Gemini, and you haven't been doing necessarily the right things or going overboard, Jupiter might bring you down. Jupiter might expand some of your wildness, and it can make you have a reality check. Maybe you'll go a little too wild one time, and maybe there'll be some trouble involved. So that's just like a challenging example. But then if you've been doing good things in a part of your life, like things that are evolutionarily, positive in your life or whatever the case may be, then Jupiter might enter and really bring you the mental, insights and stimulation and energy to expand even further in those, positive tracks that you've been, laying down for yourself. So I'm hopeful, even though Gemini's in my 8th house and I have my moon and Chiron in my 8th house, and they are both opposing my Uranus, pretty much directly head on, which if anyone wants to know, that's probably why I'm intuitive and psychic a little, or very intuitive, maybe not so much super psychic or anything, but my psychic insights do come out of nowhere pretty profoundly at times. So when Jupiter gets into my 8th house, I don't know what I'm expecting. The last time Jupiter came into my 8th house, entering Gemini, was June 2012. And I could tell you right now, that was the last year of my life. I was going through a pretty toxic time, to be honest. I was, I used to be a very heavy drinker back in the day when I was younger, early 20s. And, I was hanging around kind of a bad crew at the time. I was involved in a lot of musical endeavors and stuff and a lot of rock and roll type friends. And that really expanded a lot of psychic behavior in myself too. I knew there was a lot of psychic insight coming to me during that time period, a lot of deep psychological transformations that I was already feeling up until about halfway through that Jupiter transit, where I completely changed my life. I went through some kind of a psychological breakdown where I really just saw the truth of my life, and I was having so many clairvoyant and psychic experiences. I got rid of all my friends at the time, and I really had a dark night of the soul that transformed me for the better. Now, I'm hoping this time around, my life doesn't come collapsing down or anything, because I've been, I feel like really great in my life for the most part. We all have our problems, trust me. And when you're intuitive and, someone like myself, whatever, there's a lot of deep stuff that I deal with all the time, trying to, integrate and understand my feelings and emotions in my intuitive system. So this time around, I'm anticipating Jupiter really expanding my depths of psychology, my deeper understanding of myself in my last 12-year cycle of Jupiter's transit around my zodiac. I'm anticipating maybe even more psychic senses to come online in a way. And I really do feel I'm at a place in my life, 8th house positivity, to the best that I can speculate on the 8th house, is that I do feel that Jupiter will be expanding something within me and maybe even having more ability to communicate some of these deeper ideas and experiences I've had over my life. And also, of course, bringing astrology to the world, on a YouTube level now and on a global level outside of just my local affairs. So that's what I'm kind of already intuitively feeling my Jupiter transit will be. I'm sure there'll be rough moments. I'm sure Jupiter expanding things in that part of my life for all the 8th house significations. At least I view the 8th house as the house of psychology and transformation. I don't really technically, I think, the whole thing with other people's money and resources and, debts and super sexual things, I don't necessarily see that in the 8th house. I think Scorpio energy in the 8th house is more about transformation, very platonic energy, very shamanic energy. And I feel at this point in my life, I'm ready to transform even further and expand some of those things in my life to even provide them for other people. Because Gemini is about communication and guiding people in a certain way. If you use your communication in a daily life, in that regard. So I want you guys to really reflect on your Gemini journey. I want you guys to look back in time, see what you were doing June 2012 through June, July, August 2013, and see what kind of things came up for you and what have you been through that has brought you back maybe to this time now. Because I think when we look back, when it comes to bigger transits, we can kind of get a sense of the parts of our experience that might get activated again. So again, there's so much to talk about with Jupiter and Gemini's ingress. I'll definitely be talking much more about it because Gemini is a wild card of a sign. It's an air sign. The last time Jupiter was in an air sign, I think it was Aquarius. So that was some time ago, guys. That wasn't, that was a few years back. And the Aquarian story in all of our lives, with Saturn being in Aquarius and Pluto being on and off in Aquarius now for almost a year, or a little more than a year, I guess. There's a lot of stuff that happened in Aquarius in our life. So Jupiter really was expanding a lot of that. And we all know that Aquarius really was activated heavily in our lives with COVID and all the stuff that happened with COVID, lockdowns, restrictions, all this stuff. And Jupiter expanded a lot of that. It expanded a lot of those, regulations and systems, but it also brought a lot of insight and wisdom to all of us humans on how we experience that part of our life, both on a collective level and a individual level. Because our individual Aquarian story is not the same as the collective Aquarian story, but we all went through the collective Aquarian story and we experienced whatever that was through our own Aquarian part of our birth chart. So Jupiter in an air sign, we can expect some of the same kind of chaos, but sometimes that chaos is good. Sometimes we need more air in our life so we could be fluid and able to shapeshift and, really kind of do more than one thing all at once. And in the most positive sense, we can really kind of psychically tune in to a lot of different aspects of our lives. So Gemini can be a very psychic sign. a very intuitive sign because it's processing so much. And Jupiter can be a very, it's a guru, it's a teacher, which also means inner wisdom, wisdom from the third eye, wisdom from the heavens, from other dimensional realities, just however we receive wisdom as humans. So I hope this little talk made sense today, guys. Definitely reflect, though. That was pretty much my main message I wanted to bring into the video today, was kind of remember what was going on in 2012, 2013. See, because that's active, that energy is here again for you. But like I just gave in my example, during that time, I was having a lot of revelation and wisdom come to me, and deep knowings about my own psychology, and knowing that I needed to transform my life in some way. And my life did get transformed by the force. I didn't necessarily want to quit drinking and being friends with some of these people that I was back in the day. But I was spiraling down a road that was only getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and more worrisome. And then one day I just said, fuck this. I need to change my life. I need to, really take all these intuitive and psychic experiences on what I need to transform the deepest part of myself, the 8th house stuff. And I took the time over an entire year plus, as Jupiter went into my 9th house, in 2013, 14, and 15. And my 9th house is Cancer, and of course we all know what that 9th house is all about. Higher learning, philosophy, integration with education, spirituality. And I was getting very spiritual at the time. And again, more of my intuitive and deeper spiritual, nature was coming online. That's really when I started to see a lot of synchronicities and started to study the occult and study astrology and study so many things. And it was all because Jupiter did what it did in my 8th house, at that time period. And then it set me up for a 3 to 4 year journey as it went through my 9th house Cancer to expand me and teach me, the higher ways. So we're all going to have something of higher knowledge and something of higher, understanding and wisdom come to us this time around too. But what's going on actually in your life? Like during that time period, I was doing the work. I was brought to my knees with the 8th house, that Gemini Jupiter transit. But then again, it set me up for a journey that I've been on for now 12 years. So I hope that all makes sense, guys. And I'm sorry if I talked a little bit too much about myself, but sometimes the best teaching comes from personal experience. And me reflecting a little bit today on my experience going backwards in time. I just knew this was something I needed to bring up today to you all. And let me know what you guys maybe, if you're open to sharing, share in the comments. Do you remember what was going on that last time Jupiter entered your Gemini? And maybe what do you think is going to happen this time around? I mean, we're going to have a lot of action this summer with aspects from planets to different planets. So, of course, all activations are going to be different in a way, depending on what's going to be hitting Gemini to a certain extent. I mean, we do have a lot of activations that will be hitting Gemini, so it's not going to be an identical experience to back in the day. But it sure is going to bring up and discuss similar, energies is probably the best way to put it. So there'll be a lot to talk about, guys, in the coming months, of course. So that's all I have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed this. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you are new and stay to the end. Sending you so much love, guys, and I will see you in the next video.